The afternoon sun was warm enough to make the town feel lazy, but not so hot that people avoided the streets. Students were just leaving school, scattered along the sidewalks in small groups, laughing and talking about nothing in particular. Among them walked a quiet girl who preferred to keep her thoughts to herself. She held her backpack straps with both hands as she made her way toward the small shopping district a few blocks away. She had a plan for the day, and she was excited about it in her own gentle way. Her best friend's birthday was coming up, and she wanted to find something meaningful, something small but special, the kind of gift that showed she had really thought about it. She had saved a little money from doing chores around the house, and she had already checked 2 different stores earlier in the week without seeing anything that felt right. Today, she hoped she would finally find it. The shop she headed toward was a place she had passed by many times but never actually entered. It wasn't a big store, more like a boutique squeezed between a bakery and a flower shop. From the outside, it looked peaceful and tidy, with glass shelves that held tiny decorations and jewelry that sparkled under soft lights. She always thought it looked like a place where people bought gifts they really cared about. She stepped inside with a small smile, letting the door close quietly behind her. The smell of fresh candles filled the air. Calm music played softly from somewhere she couldn't see. For a moment, she felt comfortable, almost at home. She loosened her grip on her backpack and looked around, taking in the soft colors and neatly arranged displays. She didn't notice the woman behind the counter right away. She was focused on a stand of bracelets near the front. Some had little charms shaped like stars or tiny hearts. Others had beads in different shades of blue and green. She touched one lightly, checking the price, thinking about her friend and what she might like. It was only when she felt someone's eyes on her that she looked up and saw the woman standing a few feet away. The woman had her arms crossed, her eyes sharp, and her mouth pressed into a thin line, even though she didn't say anything at first. The girl felt the sudden shift in the air as if she had walked into a room where she wasn't supposed to be. She tried to push the thought away and went back to looking at the bracelets. After a moment, she heard footsteps approaching. The woman came closer, stopping just behind her shoulder. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, but not in the warm, friendly way most shop workers did. Her tone was stiff, almost irritated. The girl turned slightly and offered a polite smile. "I'm just looking. Thank you." The woman didn't leave. Instead, she hovered, watching her every move. The girl felt her skin grow warm with discomfort. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't touching too many items, and she wasn't making any noise. Still, she felt as if she had already broken some rule she didn't know existed, trying to distract herself. She moved to another shelf, where small necklaces hung on delicate stands. She liked one with a tiny silver leaf on it. She imagined her friend wearing it and smiled at the thought. She checked the price again and thought she might be able to afford it with the money she had saved. But the moment didn't last long. She could feel the woman following her. Each time she moved to another section, the woman stayed a few steps behind, pretending to fix something on a shelf or straighten a row of items. The girl's breath became shallow. She tried hard not to show how uncomfortable she was. She reminded herself that she belonged there as much as anyone. Stores were open for everyone. She wasn't doing anything suspicious. She was simply trying to find a birthday gift. But no matter how much she told herself that, she couldn't shake the tight feeling forming in her chest. A couple walked into the shop, talking quietly to each other. The woman behind the counter offered them a cheerful greeting, nothing like the cold tone she had used with the girl. The girl noticed the difference immediately, though she tried not to let it bother her. She kept her eyes on the shelves, pretending she didn't feel watched. After the couple left, the girl made her way to the back of the store where a small table displayed rings and earrings. She didn't plan to buy any, but she loved looking at them. Some were simple and pretty, others more detailed with tiny stones that reflected the lights above. She leaned forward a little to get a better look. Suddenly, she heard the woman's voice again. "Is there something you're looking for?" The tone was sharper this time, almost impatient. The girl straightened up and turned. "Not really," she said softly. "I'm just trying to find a birthday gift." The woman didn't smile. "You've been walking around for a while?" The girl blinked, unsure how to respond. "I just wanted to look at everything," she said carefully. "I like to think before I buy something." The woman's eyes narrowed in a way that made the girl's stomach twist. She wasn't sure what she had done wrong. Her hands shook a little, so she held onto her backpack strap again, hoping the woman wouldn't notice. Another customer came in, glanced at the displays, then left within a minute. The girl watched the door close, wishing for a moment that she could walk out just as easily. But she didn't want to leave just because someone made her feel unwelcome. She wanted to find her friend a gift. She wanted to leave with her head held high. She took a deep breath and moved toward the front again. She paused in front of the bracelets one more time. Maybe she should just pick one and go. But her mind felt cloudy and she couldn't focus. She felt as if she were performing some kind of test she never agreed to take. The woman walked behind her again. "If you're not going to buy anything," she said sharply, "I need you to make room for paying customers." The words hit her like a splash of cold water. She turned slowly. "I was going to buy something," she said quietly. "I'm just choosing." "Then choose," the woman said, folding her arms again. The girl felt her throat tighten. She wasn't used to speaking up, but the unfairness of the situation pressed against her chest. "I'm not doing anything wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman didn't answer. She simply sighed loudly, as if she were tired of dealing with her. The girl looked down, blinking fast to keep her eyes from watering. She didn't want the woman to see how upset she was. She moved toward the exit slowly, not because she wanted to leave, but because she felt pushed out. Her heart felt heavy, and each step made it harder to breathe. As she reached the door, she hesitated. She looked back at the bracelet stand, wishing she could grab the one she liked and walk confidently to the counter. But she knew the woman would still look at her the same way. The whole experience had changed the air inside the store. What felt warm and peaceful when she first walked in now felt cold and suffocating. She stepped outside and let the door close behind her. The warm afternoon air brushed against her face, and she exhaled shakily. She walked a few steps away from the shop, stopping near a bench. She sat down slowly, placing her backpack beside her. She stared at her hands for a long moment. Her chest ached with the kind of hurt that didn't come from anything physical. It was the hurt of being treated differently without understanding why. She wiped her eyes quickly, hoping no one walking by would notice. She took out her phone, her fingers trembling a little. She hadn't planned to call anyone. She wanted this day to be simple, quiet, and special. But things hadn't gone the way she hoped. She unlocked her phone and stared at the screen. She thought about everything that had just happened. She tried to tell herself it wasn't a big deal. She tried to believe that maybe the woman was having a bad day, or was stressed for some reason that had nothing to do with her. But deep down, she knew the difference between someone being busy and someone making you feel like you didn't belong. And she felt that difference in every part of her. When her phone rang in her hand, she nearly dropped it. She had accidentally clicked her father's number while trying to swipe past it. She hesitated when she saw his name on the screen. She didn't want to worry him, not over something like this. But the phone kept ringing. Something in her heart whispered that she didn't have to keep quiet. She took a breath and answered. "Hi," her father said, his voice calm. "Everything okay?" She swallowed hard. Can you come pick me up?" His tone changed immediately. "Of course. Where are you?" She told him the street, her voice soft but steady. He said he would be there in a few minutes. She lowered the phone and held it in her lap. She didn't cry again. She just stared at the shop window from the bench, watching people walk in and out, as if nothing unusual had happened. As if the world inside was perfectly normal. She pulled her backpack close and waited, hoping the day would still find a way to end better than it started. The girl sat quietly on the bench outside the shop, trying to steady her breathing as she watched people walk by as if nothing unusual had happened. Some carried shopping bags, others pushed strollers. Some chatted on phones. The world around her kept moving normally, but she felt as if she had been pulled out of that normal flow and placed in a cold, confusing space that no one else could see. She tried to remind herself that she hadn't done anything wrong, but the feeling of being treated differently still sat, heavy in her chest. When she spotted her father's car turning the corner, she felt a rush of relief mixed with worry. She didn't want to look upset when he stepped out, but she also knew she couldn't hide how shaken she was. The car slowed, then stopped near the bench. Her father got out immediately, closing the door behind him with a quiet thud. He had a calm presence about him, the kind that made people feel safe without him having to say much. He walked toward her with steady steps. She stood up, brushing her hands on her jeans even though they weren't dirty. When he reached her, he tilted his head slightly, looking at her face with gentle concern. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded at first, but her voice refused to come out when she tried to speak. He didn't push her. He simply placed a hand on her shoulder, waiting for her to take a breath. "What happened?" he asked after a moment, his tone careful and patient. She looked at the shop window, then back at him. I went in to get something for my friend," she said quietly. "A birthday gift." He nodded. "All right. I wasn't doing anything wrong," she added quickly, her voice trembling. "I was just looking around." He listened without interrupting, his expression calm but focused. "She kept following me," she continued, glancing toward the store again. "The woman inside. She kept watching me wherever I went. And her tone was... it was just..." She paused, trying to find the right words. He rubbed her shoulder lightly. "Take your time." She swallowed hard. "She made me feel like I didn't belong there," she finally said. "Like I was doing something bad, even though I wasn't." Her father let out a slow breath through his nose, not angry, but deeply bothered. "Did she say something to you?" The girl nodded. "She told me to leave if I wasn't going to buy anything. But I was trying to choose. Then she told me I'd been walking around too long." She looked down at her shoes. I couldn't stay in there. I didn't feel right." Her father looked toward the shop now, his eyes steady and unreadable. The boutique looked peaceful from the outside, with its clean windows and gentle lighting, but he knew his daughter wouldn't call him unless... Something truly hurt her. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. "I didn't want to bother you," she murmured. "You're never a bother to me," he replied gently. "When something upsets you, it matters to me." The girl nodded, feeling a small bit of comfort warm her chest. He looked at her again. "Do you want to go home?" She hesitated. Part of her wanted to, just to escape the feeling of being watched and judged. But another part of her felt that leaving now would make the whole experience feel even worse. Like she had accepted that she wasn't allowed inside a store like everyone else. "I don't know," she said honestly. Her father followed her gaze back toward the store window. Inside, the same woman stood behind the counter, flipping through something on her phone as if nothing unusual had happened. A couple of customers browsed the shelves, unaware of what had taken place only minutes earlier. Her father let a few seconds pass before speaking again. "Would you feel okay going somewhere else to shop?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I just didn't want to leave like that." "I understand," he said. "You didn't deserve that. You didn't turn away from the shop, though." Something about the situation lingered in his mind, bothering him in a deeper way. He wasn't the type of person to make a scene, and he wasn't someone who reacted without thought. But he believed in fairness, and he believed in speaking up when someone he cared about was wronged. He looked at his daughter again. "Before we go," he said quietly, "I want to make sure we clear up what happened. You don't have to go back inside with me if you don't want to."
Ow.
She tensed slightly. "Are you going to talk to her?" "Yes," he said gently.
Right.
Calmly. "I just want to understand why she treated you that way." The girl shook her head. "She's not going to admit anything." "It's all right," he said. "She doesn't have to admit anything for me to speak up." The girl took a breath, her eyes moving between him and the shop door. After a moment, she nodded. "I'll go with you," she said, in a quiet but steady voice. "I want to be there." He gave her a small, proud smile. "All right then." They walked together toward the entrance. The girl felt nervous, but being beside her father grounded her. She wasn't alone now. She wasn't facing the situation without support. The bell above the door chimed when they stepped inside. The woman behind the counter lifted her eyes, her expression turning briefly blank before tightening. She looked at the girl, then at the man beside her. Her father nodded politely. "Hello," he said in a calm voice. "Hi," the woman replied, her tone flat. "I'd like to ask you something," he began. The woman straightened slightly, her posture stiff. "If this is about her," she said quickly, glancing at the girl, I've already handled the situation. Her father didn't react to the sharpness in her tone. What situation is that? He asked, still calm. She was wandering around the store for too long, the woman said, as if stating a fact. I asked if she needed help multiple times. She didn't seem to know what she wanted. The girl felt her stomach twist. Her father stayed composed, and that was a problem? He asked gently. The woman hesitated. Well, yes. She was taking up space near the displays. Other customers needed room. I was the only one there for most of the time, the girl said softly. The woman looked at her as though the girl's words were an inconvenience. It's our responsibility to maintain order here. Her father nodded slowly. I understand maintaining order. I also understand customer service. Something in his calm tone made the woman shift slightly. As if unsure why she suddenly felt uneasy. My daughter tells me she felt followed around the store, he continued, and that she was asked to leave if she wasn't going to buy something. Well, the woman said quickly, we have to make sure our merchandise is safe. He raised one eyebrow gently. Was there something unsafe about her looking at the items? The woman opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at the girl, then back at her father, her face tightening as she tried to gather an explanation. I treat every customer the same, she insisted. The father glanced briefly at the door where earlier customers had received warm greetings, but he didn't bring it up. He simply said, it didn't feel that way to her. The woman crossed her arms. I can't control how she chooses to feel. The girl felt the sting of those words. Her father placed his hand lightly on her shoulder. I'm not asking you to control feelings, he said calmly. I'm asking you to reflect on how you speak to people, especially young customers who are simply trying to shop like anyone else. The woman seemed to grow more defensive. Look, I didn't do anything wrong. Her father nodded thoughtfully, then said, if that's the case, then you shouldn't mind if we speak with someone else who works here. The woman's posture stiffened even more. I'm the one in charge, she snapped. There's no one else you need to talk to. At that moment, the curtain near the back of the store shifted. A man from the stockroom stepped into view, carrying a small box of inventory. He stopped when he saw the father and the girl standing near the counter. His eyes widened slightly in recognition. Sir, the stockroom worker said with surprise. I didn't know you were coming today. The woman froze. She turned quickly toward the worker. You know him? The worker nodded. Of course. He's the father lifted a hand gently, stopping him mid-sentence. His voice remained warm and quiet. It's all right, he said. We don't need to get into titles. But the worker looked at the woman with an expression she couldn't interpret. Respect? Worry? A hint of warning? The woman glanced between them, her confidence faltering for the first time. I'd like to speak outside for a moment, the father said to his daughter. Offering her a tiny reassuring nod, she nodded in return and followed him toward the door. When they stepped back outside into the warm air, she finally exhaled deeply. Her father looked at her, his expression gentle again. You handled that well, said softly. I didn't say much, she murmured. You didn't need to, he replied. Your honesty was enough. She looked down at the ground, feeling tired but lighter than before. Are you angry? She asked. I'm disappointed, he said truthfully. No one should make you feel small for simply existing in a place you have every right to be. She nodded slowly, her eyes stinging again, but this time it wasn't from hurt. It was from the comfort of being believed. Someone from inside the store came toward the window, watching them nervously. The girl noticed but said nothing. Her father didn't react either. He simply placed a gentle hand on her back. Let's take a breath, he said. Then we'll decide what to do next. She nodded, knowing that for the first time today, she felt safe again. The girl stood outside the shop with her father, trying to calm her thoughts. Even though the air was warm and steady, she still felt waves of uneasiness rolling through her chest. But being near him helped. He had always been the kind of person who made difficult moments feel a little less heavy, simply by staying calm and steady. She looked toward the shop window again. The woman inside kept glancing out, pretending not to watch them. The worker who recognized her father had gone back into the stockroom, but his surprised reaction still replayed in her mind. She had no idea what it meant, and she didn't ask. She trusted that her father would explain things when he felt the time was right. For now, she just wanted to breathe normally again. Her father stood beside her with his hands in his pockets. He wasn't speaking yet, but his silence wasn't cold. It felt thoughtful, like he was choosing his next steps carefully. He didn't move or fidget. He simply looked at the ground for a moment, then at the street, then at her. She knew he wasn't angry. He rarely showed anger. But she could tell when something bothered him deeply. This was one of those moments. After a minute, he asked softly, "Do you want to go somewhere else now? There are a few other stores not far from here." She opened her mouth to say yes. She wanted to escape the area, to move far away from the uncomfortable feeling still stuck in her chest. But another part of her felt something stronger, something she wasn't used to feeling. She didn't want the day to be shaped by what had happened inside that shop. She shook her head. Not yet. Her father watched her face with calm curiosity. "All right. What would you like to do?" She took a slow breath. "I want to walk around a little first," she said. "Just clear my mind." He nodded. Of course. They walked along the sidewalk together. The street was familiar, and the familiar sights gradually helped her settle. A few shops displayed clothes on mannequins behind glass. The bakery nearby filled the air with the smell of warm bread. A couple of children ran past them, laughing, chasing each other with no concern in the world. Their carefree joy softened the edge of the girl's sadness just a little. Her father walked quietly beside her, not rushing her or filling the silence with unnecessary words. She appreciated that. She didn't need him to talk constantly. She just needed him near. After a few minutes, she spoke. "Did I do something wrong?" She asked quietly, not looking up. "No," he said firmly, without hesitation. "You walked into a store to buy a gift. That's all." But she looked at me like she stopped herself. Unsure how to finish the sentence, he waited patiently for her to continue. "She looked at me like she'd already decided everything about me," the girl said finally. "Before I even opened my mouth," her father nodded softly. "That happens sometimes," he said. "And it shouldn't, but it does." She swallowed, her throat tight again. I didn't want to give her a reason to think bad things about me. I didn't touch anything roughly. I didn't talk too loud. I didn't do anything wrong. He stopped walking. She stopped with him. He turned slightly so he could see her clearly. "You don't have to perform for anyone," he said gently. "You don't have to be perfect just to be treated fairly." Her eyes lifted to his. "You deserve respect simply because you're a person," he continued, his voice calm but full of quiet strength. "Not because you act a certain way, and not because someone approves of you." She felt something unclench in her chest. He always had a way of putting things in a way she could understand, even when her thoughts felt tangled. They started walking again, slower this time. "What if she tells someone a different story?" the girl asked after a moment. "What if she makes it sound like I did something wrong?" Her father glanced at her gently. "People can say what they want," he replied, "but the truth doesn't change because someone tries to rewrite it." She thought about that for a while. She still felt the sting of how the woman treated her. But now her father's words softened that sting a little. They eventually reached a small fountain in the center of the shopping district. Water flowed softly from the top, trickling into a shallow pool. A few benches surrounded it. Her father nodded toward one of them. She sat down, letting the sound of the water soothe her. He sat beside her, but didn't crowd her. They watched the fountain for a moment before he spoke again. "You know," he said quietly, "situations like this, they're not just about what happened. They're also about what we do afterward." She looked at him with a hint of curiosity. "You didn't run," he said. "You didn't hide. You told me the truth, even though it was hard. And you walked back into a place that made you uncomfortable because you wanted to be heard." He gave a tiny, warm smile. "That takes strength." She blinked slowly, surprised by the way his words made her chest feel lighter. "I didn't feel strong," she murmured. "Most people don't," he replied gently. "But strength isn't about feeling brave. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard." She let his words settle in her mind. After a long moment, she said, When you went inside with me, you didn't get angry. You just talked calmly. How do you do that? He chuckled softly. Years of practice. She smiled a little. Anger doesn't make people listen, he said. Sometimes it does the opposite. But calm, truth spoken clearly can make someone rethink their actions. The girl thought back to the woman's face inside the store. At first, the woman had been confident, even dismissive. But once her father asked questions slowly and clearly, that confidence cracked. She didn't admit she was wrong. She also didn't have an answer for his questions. Do you think she'd treat other people differently after this? The girl asked. Her father took a slow breath. I hope so, he said. But even if she doesn't, what matters most right now is how you come out of this. She looked down at her hands resting in her lap. I don't want this to ruin my day. And it won't, he said. We won't let it. Soft breeze passed by, brushing a strand of her hair across her face. She tucked it behind her ear. After a moment, he added, There's something else I need to tell you. She turned slightly toward him, curious but not anxious. His tone wasn't heavy or worrying. It was simply thoughtful. The worker who recognized me earlier, he said, was surprised because he knows me from the main office. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? Her father looked at the fountain for a moment before answering. This shop, he said gently, is one of the stores owned by my company. The girl stared at him, startled. Her mouth parted slightly, but no sound came out. I wasn't planning to stop by today, he added calmly. But I know the people who work here. This store is part of our business chain. She blinked, trying to process the information. So, she talked to me like that. In a place you own? His voice remained soft. She didn't know who you were. And that's not the point. Everyone should be treated with kindness no matter who they are or who they know. The girl felt her pulse quicken, not from fear or sadness, but from surprise. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. For now, he said gently, I'm going to think. I won't act out of anger, but I will make sure the people who work in our stores understand how to treat customers. All customers. She nodded slowly. Something inside her began to shift, moving from hurt toward a strange mixture of surprise, relief, and curiosity. Her father placed a gentle hand on her back. Before we leave this area, he said softly, there's something we need to do. She looked up at him. You still wanted to buy your friend a gift, he reminded her with a warm smile. Let's make sure this day ends the way you planned. She felt a small spark of excitement return a feeling she didn't expect to feel again after what happened and were going back. There? She asked cautiously. He nodded once. Together, her stomach fluttered with nerves, but she trusted him. The girl stood slowly. Her father stood with her. They walked back toward the shop, not quickly and not with fear. They walked with steady steps, side by side. The shop was still open. The woman inside saw them approaching. Her expression shifted instantly from annoyed to nervous, to something close to panic. The worker from earlier peeked through the curtain again, his eyes widening as they drew closer. The girl's heart beat fast, but she didn't stop. This time, she wasn't walking into the store alone, and she wasn't walking in uncertain. Something important was about to happen. She could feel it, but she didn't know what. All she knew was that this moment mattered. She reached for the door handle, took a steady breath, and stepped inside with her father right beside her. The next morning arrived slowly, as if the sun itself wasn't in a hurry to rise. The girl woke up earlier than usual, her mind still replaying everything that had happened the day before. She lay on her back and stared at the ceiling for a long moment, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. The hum of the fan, the soft footsteps of her mother in the kitchen, and the distant call of a vendor outside formed the kind of morning she usually liked. But today felt different. Heavy, uneasy. She sat up slowly and hugged her knees, letting her thoughts settle one by one. She didn't want the day to begin with sadness, but she also couldn't just pretend everything was fine. The memory of the store, the woman's cold stare, the sharp words, the feeling of being pushed out still clung to her. She tried to brush them away, but they kept coming back. Still, she knew she needed to get up. She forced herself to stand, walked to the sink, splashed water on her face, and brushed her hair. When she finally stepped into the kitchen, her mother looked at her with gentle eyes. "You woke up early?" her mother said as she placed warm tea on the table. "Yeah," the girl answered softly. She sat down, wrapping her hands around the cup. The warmth helped a little. She took a sip and looked down, hoping her mother wouldn't ask too many questions. But mothers always know when something is wrong. "Did something happen at school?" her mother asked calmly. The girl shook her head. "At home?" Another shake. Her mother waited patiently. She didn't push, which made the girl feel safe enough to speak. "I went to a shop yesterday," the girl finally said. "I wanted to buy something, but—" She hesitated, trying to find the right words. "The woman there didn't treat me very well." Her mother lowered her spoon slowly and looked at her with full attention. "What do you mean?" "She kept following me," the girl whispered. "She acted like I didn't belong there. She talked to me like I was doing something wrong." Her mother's face softened with concern. "Did you take anything? Touch something too much? Did something fall?" "No," the girl said quickly. "I was just looking," her mother nodded once. She didn't doubt her for even a moment. That alone made the girl's chest feel lighter. "I'm sorry you had to feel that way," her mother said. "Some people, they let their own fears or ideas make them behave unfairly. But it doesn't mean you were wrong. It doesn't mean you don't belong." The girl took a slow breath. "I didn't buy anything, that's all right." "I wanted to," she whispered. "But she made me feel like I shouldn't." Her mother reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "You did nothing wrong." They sat in silence for a moment. Then her mother said something that stayed with her far longer than she expected. "Don't let one person decide how you see yourself." The girl nodded, though her heart still felt bruised. She stayed at the table until she finished her tea and finally got ready for school. When she walked outside, the air was cool and the street was already filling with people heading to work or opening their shops. She kept her steps slow, her thoughts wandering back and forth between yesterday and today. She tried not to get lost in them, but it was hard. Her friend walked up beside her halfway to school. He waved with a bright smile, but the smile faded when he saw her expression. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, though it wasn't very convincing. "You don't look okay?" She hesitated. She didn't really want to talk about it, but she also didn't want to carry everything alone. "I went to that little shop near the bakery yesterday," she said. "The one with all the jewelry." "Oh yeah, I know that one," he said. "It looks fancy." She nodded. "The woman working there kept following me around. She treated me like I was going to do something wrong." He frowned immediately. "Seriously? Why?" "I don't know. It's messed up," he said. "You're practically the least suspicious person in the world." She shrugged. "But she didn't act that way with other people. Only with me." Her friend walked in silence for a moment, then said, "You know, it says more about her than it does about you." The girl tried to smile. "That's what my mom said." "Well, your mom's smart." They both laughed softly, and for the first time that morning. She felt a little lighter. When they arrived at school, she tried to focus on class. She took notes, answered a question when called on, and even managed to laugh at a joke someone made during break time. But every now and then, her mind drifted back to that moment in the store when she realized she wasn't welcome. The feeling wasn't as sharp as yesterday, but it still tugged at her thoughts like a loose thread she couldn't stop noticing. During lunch, one of her classmates mentioned going to the same shopping district over the weekend. Somehow that made her heart squeeze again. Her friend noticed and nudged her gently. "Hey, want to come with me after school? We can walk around a bit." She hesitated. Part of her wanted to avoid the area entirely, but another part of her, stronger than before, knew she didn't want fear or discomfort shaping her choices. "Okay," she said quietly. "But not to that shop." "Of course not," he said. "We'll go wherever you feel comfortable." School passed as usual, and by the time the final bell rang, she felt a little more relaxed. They walked down the street together, passing the bakery, the bookstore, the little fruit stand where workers called out friendly greetings to customers. The world felt normal again, and that helped her breathe more easily. But when they approached the block where the gift shop stood, Her steps slowed automatically. Her friend noticed. "We don't have to go this way," he said softly. "No, it's okay," she answered. Though part of her wasn't sure, they walked past the flower shop first. The smell of fresh petals drifted out, softening her mood. Then they reached the gift shop. She tried not to look at the window display, but her eyes went there anyway. The same decorations were arranged neatly inside. Nothing had changed, except she knew she wasn't going back in. She kept walking, and her friend matched her pace without a word. A few feet later, he asked, "You still want to find a gift?" She nodded. "Her birthday is soon. I want it to be something nice." "Then let's look somewhere else," he said. "There are other shops, better ones." They wandered through several stores. They didn't rush. Some places had cute items but too expensive. Others had things that were simple but didn't feel special enough. Still, she didn't get frustrated. She was just happy she wasn't alone that day at one shop. She found a small keychain with a tiny wooden charm shaped like a leaf. It reminded her of the silver leaf necklace she had seen at the other store. But this one felt different, warmer, almost handmade. She picked it up and turned it in her fingers. "You like it?" her friend asked. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, it feels right, and it won't empty your wallet," he joked. She smiled and decided to buy it. The cashier greeted her kindly, wrapped the charm carefully, and wished her a good day. The simple kindness felt like a soft blanket around her shoulders. When she walked out of the shop, she felt the tension in her heart loosen even more. "See," her friend said. "This place is nicer anyway," she laughed. "Yeah, it is." They walked toward home together. The sky had begun turning shades of orange and pink, and the air felt cool and calm. She carried the small bag carefully, holding it close to her chest, grateful she had found something special in a place where she actually felt welcome. But as they reached the corner where she usually turned to her street, she saw something that made her stop suddenly. A woman stood outside the first shop she had visited, the gift shop with the cold atmosphere. She wasn't the same woman from yesterday. This one looked different. She seemed worried, glancing inside the store and talking hurriedly on her phone. A few boxes were stacked near the entrance, and the lights inside were off, even though it was still early. The girl couldn't help staring. Her friend followed her gaze. "What's going on?" he asked. "I don't know." The woman outside hung up the phone and sighed heavily, rubbing her forehead as if the day had drained her completely. The girl had a strange, feeling curiosity mixed with caution. She didn't want anything to do with that store, but something about the situation looked unusual, almost urgent. Her friend looked at her. "You want to check?" "I'm not sure," she whispered. Because checking meant stepping closer to a place that still felt painful, but walking away meant wondering all. Evening what was happening. She took a slow breath, held the little gift bag tightly, and made up her mind. She stepped forward. The girl walked toward the shop slowly, unsure of what she would find. Her friend stayed close beside her, not saying anything but letting her know he was there if she needed him. With every step, the uneasy feeling in her stomach grew, but so did her curiosity. Something was different today. She could feel it in the air. When she reached the storefront, the woman standing there looked up. She wasn't the same woman from before. Her face was softer, tired, and full of worry. She gave the girl and her friend a brief nod, almost as if she expected someone else. "Can I help with something?" the woman asked, her voice polite but distracted. The girl hesitated. She didn't want to mention yesterday, or the way she had been treated. Instead, she pointed gently to the closed shop. "Is everything okay?" The woman let out a long breath. "Honestly, no, not really. I came to open the store today, and I found out one of my employees locked everything wrong last night. Lights left on, register open, boxes not moved inside. It's a mess, and I'm trying to sort everything out while I wait for someone to come help." The girl listened quietly. She didn't know what to say. She couldn't forget how the employee had treated her, but she also didn't want to cause problems for someone who seemed already overwhelmed. The woman wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and forced a small smile. "Sorry, you must think I'm rambling. Did you two need something?" The girl started to shake her head, but the woman suddenly tilted hers, studying her face with a little more focus. "Wait," she said softly. "Were you here yesterday?" The girl froze. She didn't know whether to admit it or pretend she was someone else. Her friend glanced at her, waiting to see what she would do. "Yes," the girl finally said quietly. The woman sighed again, but this time it wasn't from stress. It was from understanding. "I thought so. You came in looking for a gift, didn't you?" The girl nodded. The woman pressed her lips together and lowered her eyes. "I'm guessing it didn't go well." The girl didn't answer. She didn't need to. "I'm really sorry," the woman said softly. "I wasn't here yesterday. My employee was, and I already heard about the way she spoke to someone. She didn't say it was a young girl, though. She just said there was a difficult customer. I didn't think much of it until I saw you walking by today." The girl felt her stomach twist. She didn't want to revisit the uncomfortable moment, but she also didn't want the woman to blame herself for something she didn't do. "I didn't do anything wrong," the girl whispered. "I know you didn't," the woman said quietly. "And it wasn't fair. I'm truly sorry you were treated that way in my store." The apology was gentle and sincere. It felt different from the sharp voice she heard yesterday. But even then, the girl wasn't sure how to respond. Part of her wanted to walk away and leave everything behind. Another part of her wanted to accept the apology. And a small part of her wanted to know why the employee had acted like that. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble," she said softly. "You're not," the woman assured her. "This is something I need to handle myself. I want my shop to feel safe for everyone who walks in. If someone made you feel otherwise, that's something I have to fix, not you." Her friend finally spoke up. "She really wasn't doing anything wrong," he said firmly. "She was just looking around." The woman nodded. "Thank you for telling me." She turned to look at the messy boxes on the ground in the dark storefront behind her. "The truth is, this shop means a lot to me. It was my mother's before it became mine. I grew up here watching how she treated people with kindness, patience, and care. I want to continue that. But yesterday, that didn't happen, and that hurts." The girl felt a small warmth in her chest. This woman wasn't making excuses. She was genuinely upset that someone in her store had made another person feel unwanted. "If you ever feel comfortable," the woman continued, "I hope you'll give this place another chance. Not today, of course." "Today everything is a mess," she said with a tired laugh. "But someday," the girl looked at the closed shop again. She remembered how small she felt yesterday, how her hands shook, how the woman's voice made her want to disappear. Even now, the memory felt sharp. But today was different. The woman in front of her wasn't unkind or cold. She was just tired, apologetic, human. "I don't know," the girl said honestly. "That's okay," the woman replied gently. "You don't have to decide now," the girl nodded. Her friend nudged her shoulder lightly. "We should get going," he whispered. She agreed. But as they turned to leave, the woman called out softly, "Wait." They stopped. The woman reached into one of the boxes beside her and pulled out a small envelope. It was simple, decorated with tiny flowers on the edges. "This is for you," she said, offering it. No pressure. Just a small gesture. The girl hesitated. "What is it?" "Just a discount card," the woman said with a warm smile. "You don't have to use it, but I wanted you to have it in case you ever felt like coming back someday. I want you to feel welcome." The girl slowly took the envelope. It felt light, just paper, but somehow meaningful. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're welcome," the woman replied. And again, "I'm truly sorry." The girl and her friend walked away. For a moment, they were silent. The girl held the envelope carefully, unsure what to feel. Her emotions were mixed relief, surprise, maybe a small hint of healing. "You okay?" her friend asked. She nodded, though her thoughts were still swirling. "I didn't expect that," she said. She seemed honest. He replied, "I think so too." They walked until they reached the corner where their paths usually split. The sky above them had turned a deeper shade of orange, reflecting off the windows of houses and shops. It looked peaceful despite the long day. When she got home, she placed a little gift bag for her friend on her desk. Then she opened the small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note along with the discount card. The note said, "I hope your next visit feels different. You deserve kindness." The girl read it twice, touched by its sincerity. She slipped the card and the note into her drawer. Not because she planned to use it soon, but because she wanted to keep it somewhere safe. Days passed. She went to school, laughed with her friends, and slowly the sharp feeling from that day in the gift shop began to soften. She didn't forget, but she no longer felt the tightness in her chest when she walked near that street. On her friend's birthday, she handed her the small wooden charm. Her friend smiled brightly and hugged her tightly, saying it was the sweetest gift she had ever received. That moment alone made everything worth it. Weeks later, on a quiet afternoon, the girl found herself walking near the shopping district again. Her steps slowed when she reached the row of shops. She glanced at the boutique. This time, it was open. New decorations glowed softly in the front window. A different employee stood inside, arranging items gently. Humming to herself, the girl stood there for a moment. The discount card still folded in her drawer at home. She didn't walk inside that day, but she also didn't cross the street to avoid it. She simply stood, breathed gently, and moved on with a calm heart, because healing doesn't always look like going back. Even standing without fear can be enough.